I'm Dr. Nicole Lifkin, and this is the Hey Kiddo podcast, where we talk about all things parenting. And today we are talking again with Emily Charles, who's an occupational therapist and a Montessori educator who specializes in pediatric care. And she's been doing this since 2009. And we today are going to get down and dirty with different techniques that you can try at home when you're noticing things, and also knowing when to go seek professional help. So these are really important things that I want to dive into. I'm so excited to have you on the show again, Emily.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Okay. So what I really want to break down with you are, what are the things that you can do at home? We talked last time about your child's sensory system. What are the things that you can do at home to start supporting it? And what's the difference between the things you can do at home versus when to go seek professional help? And what are the determinants? So first of all, lay it out for us. What are the things that we're like, what are the overarching systems that are in play when it comes to sensory stuff?
Sure. So I think if we can talk more today about the proprioceptive system, right? So the proprioceptive system refers to processing the information we get to our muscles and joints. So when we're doing things like pushing and pulling, this lets us know how hard our bodies are moving, the force that we're using, our own strength. It gives us information about our own force. And the vestibular system is another one that really impacts our functioning, our nervous system. And vestibular refers to our movement and balance awareness. So I think focusing on those two, because they're the two biggest key players, in my opinion, about what impacts our nervous system and the functioning of our kiddos. So,
okay, great.
For proprioceptive, I think this could be if your kiddo's looking for a lot of what I would call heavy work, a lot of pushing, pulling, if they always seem to be wanting more, harder, faster, they're bumping into things, they just seem to be a really rough and tumble kind of kiddo. There are strategies we can try at home to help them achieve more of what I would refer to as regulation. The time that I would suggest looking into having an occupational therapist evaluate your child is if you're constantly getting reports from school that they have difficulty sitting still, they're always running into things, maybe they don't know how to gently use materials, or they're being too rough with classmates, and it's just constant. It's impacting their learning, it's impacting their school day.
All right. So if I'm a parent that's getting a lot of calls,
yeah.
If I'm a parent that's hearing my kid can't sit still or can't focus.
Sit still. Oftentimes what you'll see with sensory seekers is they might be moving around like a ping pong ball at school. It looks like they might not be taking in information, but yet they're learning. They can repeat back to you what they've observed in their classroom. They can process and comprehend books that have been read to them. They absorb information from lessons in the class, although it might not seem like they took it in because they may not have been sitting still and giving, their full undivided attention, by giving eye contact and that kind of thing. They're still taking in information. They're still learning. Their bodies just need more movement in order to
the body. Okay.
Yeah.
The body needs to move. They're comprehending, right. They're getting it. Is there, do kids who have ADHD fall in this category frequently, or is that a completely separate thing?
I haven't met somebody who had an ADHD diagnosis that didn't also have sensory processing challenges, but that's not to say they're the same thing. So someone with ADHD, they might need different learning approach, a different teaching approach to help them absorb the information, not for lack of intellect, but just to make sure that focus is being held. And oftentimes incorporating movement breaks to keep the body and brain regulated and working together smoothly would be helpful. But different things, right? So
different things.
But
this group, these are the kids that just constant movement, play hard, like go at things hard.
Yes, right. And they may be at home, they may be jumping into the couch, jumping off the couch, wanting to jump into cushions. With a parent, they might ask for rough house play and just never seem to be able to get a threshold. It's always more and more and more, until they kind of crack.
Okay, well, that's important. That's important before we kind of dive, like before we
Yeah.
dive into like how to address this at home. So a lot of kids want to rough and tumble or wrestle. You're not saying that's it. It's that there seems to be no end to it.
There's no end to it. If it's constant,
Okay.
if it seems like you cannot transition from that to, like, let's give a scenario. Let's say we just got home from school. Parents are excited to see their child and vice versa. And the child says, I want to play. I want you to do like the rough and tumble play with me. And that starts. And then it's like, okay, we'll do one more crash into the pillows. And then it's going to be time to go and sit down and have dinner. And maybe you make it to the dinner table, but we're still bouncing in the seat. We cannot just transition. We're just still constantly looking for movement. The body hasn't really moved on from that rough and tumble.
Got you.
Right. And it's constant reminders, sit down and eat, sit down and eat, sit down and eat. Maybe somehow you make it through dinner and then it's bath time. And then we're kind of just running back and forth, trying to play in our room, crashing into our bed. It doesn't really stop. There's not a functional, seamless transition from daily activities within your routine. It can be,
it's always moving. You're
always,
like,
yeah.
are enough calories going into my child's body to compensate for the constant movement? Okay.
Right. So parents might report something like, we cannot make it through our daily routine. This is exhausting and frustrating. And I'm constantly just trying to pull Johnny from one stage to the next in our daily routine. That might be what you're feeling, or what I would hear a parent reporting.
What other people are feeling. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, and actually on a professional level, are there gender differences?
There could be. I've treated both boys and girls, and I wouldn't say that there seems to be a clear gender difference. I'm sure statistically there has been a study done, but no, I think the way that right. I've seen both boys and girls with sensory processing challenges and specifically the proprioceptive system. And there doesn't seem to be a glaring difference between
boys and girls. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you do? So this is your child.
Right. So
you're tired.
Right. You're tired. You're tired. So if this is my child, what we can try are some strategies first of giving what is called a sensory diet. So it's different than food. It's just basically plugging in strategies at various points throughout their day to try to help their nervous system be balanced and regulated throughout the day. So something that's really cool about a deep pressure input or giving that kind of heavy work input is that it can have lasting effects for about 2 hours sometimes, even after the input's given. So we might begin their day by giving them some deep pressure. So that, if that's a new term, that basically just means like you're giving the muscles and joints a lot of heavy input. So you could do that through deep pressure squeezes and using your own hands. Yeah. So Nicole and I am kind of
massage.
Or like kind of giving a deep massage. You could start by giving heavy head presses onto the top of their head and then kind of working down. I like to do a game where I put my own hands out and I say, push me as hard as you can, push me away with your hands, but then I give pressure back so that, they're not really pushing me over. But that's giving their muscles and joints so much of that deep pressure that their sensory system is really craving in order to feel just right, in order to feel that kind of like, I've met my threshold. I can now go about my day and learn and function. So
is it, Emily, I'm sorry to interrupt. Is it, do you suggest doing this deep pressure in all the ways you described, or if I just did the hand thing, that would be enough?
Yeah. Right. So that's a good point. There are so many things that you can do to give deep pressure, more than we could list today. but you can choose kind of like a bag of tricks, anything
Okay.
that, and if something's not working, if the child doesn't seem like they're interested in having a joint squeeze, for example, can move on to the next thing. So they might really enjoy something like taking a favorite stuffed animal and having like giving their stuffed animal a tight hug, or having their stuffed animal be pressed down on them like a little steamroller kind of. Or you could pretend you're going to make them into a sandwich and put one favorite stuffed animal underneath them, there in the middle, another one on top, and like, okay, we're gonna press you down now, we're gonna add some mustard on top, and then take another stuffy, or just pretend, and kind of
Right.
giving the body that sort of pressure that way. Alternative ways could be pretending you really need their help, or maybe you do, and saying like, before you come to breakfast, can you please push this heavy basket of laundry from the living room all the way back to the kitchen? I really need to move that laundry. I'm just too tired. Could you give me a hand? And having them do some pushing and pulling can be really helpful to their system as well. Anytime they're doing something like stomping or jumping jacks, they're getting that kind of input. So there are so many strategies we can list. And if there's a way to plug them, I can provide a list.
Right.
To
No, definitely.
Yeah.
That list might be great. And how long do you spend? Like, so you're talking about doing this in the morning time when they wake up, getting started. How long?
Right. If you have the time, I think 15 to 20 minutes would be ideal. Nobody has that kind of time in the morning. So even like input is best if you can direct it with rhythm, and if you can give it a solid start and stop. So a song is really helpful. So if you can choose whatever their favorite song is and kind of use that to guide the rhythm of the input, and then there's a solid start and stop, that can be really organizing for a nervous system. So
that's interesting. So most of us have time for one song.
Hopefully we have time. Mornings are wild, but if it's
mornings are crazy,
it's a lot. Sometimes, and personally, sometimes what we used to do with my little one is, as she was waking, I would start a song, so she'd wake up to the song and get the pressure as she was waking.
Smart.
But that even helped with calming, to transition just from sleep to wake, which who likes to wake up in the morning?
Yeah.
Well, maybe some, I don't know. We didn't have one of those kids who shot up out of bed ready to go.
I don't either.
Unless it was a Saturday, but
right. It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
An hour earlier.
Right. But after a couple of days, maybe a week of that, noticed a really significant change in the ease that we were finding with going from sleep to wake, of just giving that gentle input to help her nervous system kind of gear shift.
In just a week?
Yeah. I mean, I would even expect with deep pressure, you could see it's very calming to the nervous system. You could see the shift that you're looking for, ease the transition when you try it, but with consistency, your nervous system really starts to calm and be able to make those shifts happen. That fancy word is called modulation, or kind of adapting to changes in what's happening around you. So by kind of targeting that shift, you're helping to support modulation, or ability to shift gears.
So are you saying that this is, I know we have a lot more to cover, but this isn't necessarily, it could be, but it isn't necessarily a long-term thing that you have to do?
Not necessarily. No. I mean, I think if someone has sensory processing challenges, it's a matter of learning what your body and your nervous system need in order to help you feel your best. So some adults might still have sensory processing challenges, but they might know strategies then for how to better support themselves. Whether or not they choose to do them is one thing, but they might know, like, I have a big meeting today. I know that I am in this kind of like the slump where I don't have energy, or maybe my brain feels scattered, in order to prepare my nervous system and focus best for this meeting, I know that I need to do like a 5-minute workout, or I need to jog on the treadmill
Right.
or something. And then that puts brain and body in a right place for feeling just right, having met a threshold for input in order to, go about the task that you need to do. So it doesn't
Okay.
always have to be something that really negatively impacts your day, your daily routine. I think it's about kind of creating an emotional intelligence around, how am I feeling, how am I interpreting what's happening around me, and what's the output that's happening, what can I do to
Okay. Got
change the
you.
output.
So, okay, we talked about, so for the kids that just are always moving,
Mhm.
that pressure.
Sure.
What about the kids that are more sluggish?
Sure. So for children who are more sluggish, you want to do almost more rapid kind of input. So if you are doing slow, deep squeezes to try to calm the nervous system of someone who is very high energy and needing a lot of deep pressure input, you're going to do quick for the kid who needs to
Yeah.
kind of get going, right? So quick is energizing, it's excitatory, and slow is for calming, right? You can use your own self, right? You can co-regulate by using your voice and your own motions to kind of model what's going to happen. So
Okay.
like
So it's
uh,
the same. It's the same, but it's just the speed. It's the pace.
it's the speed, it's the pace, which if you try it to yourself, if you start at your shoulder and you give really slow, deep squeezes all the way down
Mhm.
towards your wrist, you can kind of feel, especially if you hold the squeeze for like a good 7 seconds too, all the way down. And then just think about how that feels to you. Okay. Now start at your shoulder again and do rapid all the way down
Yeah,
to,
it's very, yeah.
it's different, right?
Different.
If
Yeah, it's stimulating. It's
it's
stimulating.
very stimulating, right? So if you're working at a faster pace, that's going to be excitatory. Same way, faster movement. So if I mean it would, for something like jumping jacks, which was a strategy mentioned earlier to help give heavy input that could be calming. Well, that can also be excitatory, right? Because you're moving.
Yep.
So it can kind of work depending on what you
Either
need
one,
to do,
right.
right? If you
What
have,
about quick patty whack? Like a
yeah,
patty whack. That's
yeah, great. Yeah, then you're also
okay.
engaging the visual system too. That would be
Okay.
great. You're really firing all kinds of neurons with that one.
I feel really bad. I
Also, do
was
you call it
working.
patty whack? I haven't heard like
I'm calling it the wrong thing. I don't know what it is. I say
I
patty
like
whack,
patty whack.
but
That's
I was doing it with my son
yeah.
the other day, but I was doing it fast, but he wasn't, he was doing the wrong sides.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, to what I wanted, and I accidentally hit his shoulder. I like went too far. I'm like, I'm sorry. I want you to
Oh my
love this
gosh.
game.
I'd be so curious if you tried patty whack again, but before you tried it, if you gave those deep pressure squeezes, because aside from calming and regulating, it also increases your body awareness. So something
Oh,
where the timing and the rhythm of an activity, a social activity that's reciprocal with another, that can, body awareness is a big part of that. How fast do I need to
oh,
move? Where does my body need to move in space in order to connect with my play partner? So
ooh.
it's these deep pressure movements, this proprioceptive system really has a lot to do not only with how we learn and regulate, but also how we socially interact and our success with play.
Huh. Okay, so it's that the slow one
The
is
slow one.
helping a child understand their body in the space.
Right. And then to take a brief tangent. So this is an
Please.
example too of how knowledge of this can benefit everyone, not just those with challenges with sensory processing. It's something that happens within all of us. We all have a brain, a body, and a nervous system. We're all processing sensory information.
Mm-hmm.
So learning about this can help all of us regulate and interact our best, learn our best, socialize our best.
Huh.
So if you feel like you're hearing this and you're like, that's kind of me, or this is kind of
It
something
is.
that resonates here, like it's because you have a sensory system and there's nothing.
No, it's interesting that you're saying this. Like I have, I am very driven in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I hit the pillow, and I am lucky to have a partner that my husband does this for me. I do need a little like head scratching and a little
Yeah.
head massage and like deep pressure on my shoulders. But I always thought it was because I got, on Zoom all day sitting and I just, like,
Uh-huh.
my neck is killing. But there's something else that's happening. It's actually chilling me out.
You need to come down. Yeah.
I need to come down or
So
my
that's a
brain
really
is
good
just,
point to bring up, is that that's your modulation. So and you're identifying how it can still happen in adults too. And
yes.
we can't have that immediate shift. You need something to signal to your nervous system and to help kind of guide that gear shift. Sometimes it's time to go from on the go, going about your day at maybe your body's not moving at a huge pace, but your brain is. It's time to
Your
gear
brain
shift
is,
down, right?
yes,
Brains and bodies
interesting.
are so connected. So expecting our children to do that, I think, is something that we're not all aware of, this process of this modulation, but it's huge. And it happens several times during the day, frequently, sometimes if you're transitioning a lot during the school day, where we're asking for a lot of gear shifts to happen. And if our
Right.
nervous systems haven't really matured to the point where that's automatic yet, we need to help and expect and give time for that to happen. So your bedtime looks like you need a little deep pressure and calming input before you can gear shift.
Yeah.
Maybe same way with our kiddos too, where if we go from, oftentimes after dinner, we'll have a little play at our house, but then we need like a 20-minute wind down before I can expect that our daughter is going to fall asleep, like, or be able to shift to actual, I'm ready for bed now, right? Because we can't just go from like, we're playing, we're having fun, we're moving our bodies, we're getting this input, like jumping and crashing. Now go to sleep. See you in the morning.
So what is it? So what, this is great. Before we go to vestibular,
Yeah.
what is a good routine to kind of shift that brain for a child?
Right. So I think if you're experiencing a lot of upright motion where you're moving your body through space while also getting deep pressure input, what I would recommend is first, stopping the moving through space, right? We're like, okay, we had a lot of fun bouncing and moving through space. I hope it's clear. I just mean like you're moving around the room. Like that's,
You're right.
you're moving your body.
In normal person term, you are moving, not an OT term.
Thank you.
Yes.
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 You're just, so we're going to say, like, let's say you were pretending you were dinosaurs.
Right.
And you're moving around the room, stomping and crashing, and
Yep.
here comes a meteor, and like it's like a pillow that is hitting your child. You're doing that kind of rough and tumble play, right? Okay. So now the dinosaurs are going to get ready to go to sleep. So we're going to sit down, and the dinosaurs, they first need to clean off their scales. So we're giving a lot of deep pressure and that calming input, but now your child is seated. You're no longer moving around. And you don't have to do it with the pretend play if that's something that's kind of out of your wheelhouse and you're like, whoa, wait a second.
I can't clean scales.
And some for the no scales. Yeah. It's okay. You can, if we're just going to be very literal about it, you can say, okay, now it's time to be done moving. Now it's time to tell our bodies we're ready for bed. Okay, so we're going to sit down and I'm going to give you some squeezes to your arm and let's see how that makes you feel. I noticed that a few moments ago when we were moving around, your body was moving so fast. You had a big smile. You were laughing. You looked really excited. It was fun. Now we're still enjoying ourselves, but I see that your breathing is slower. You're sitting down. You look calm. You look content. And we're kind of using that simple language to help increase that intelligence of like my brain and my body are connected and changing the way that I'm getting input is sort of changing the way that I feel.
Mm.
And then once you have them and you can see that maybe their breathing has slowed, maybe they're staying with you longer. You feel like you've got them right there engaged with you.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can say like, now you look like you're ready for your story. Let's go get into
Mm.
we can get. And so you're kind of helping the shift. And I think something that I just noticed myself saying to you now was the piece about using language to kind of narrate
Yeah.
what you're seeing, because that helps with the shift, right? That helps when we can talk about it so that they start to become more aware of their own regulation.
Right.
Not something we would
Right.
expect kids to do on their own. It's a mature skill that happens maybe like seventh
Right.
grade, maybe they can start to do it. Like if we're talking younger kids, we're helping them, we're guiding that
Right.
process. We're taking that,
Right.
right?
But you're teaching, it's emotional
But we're
intelligence, it's a
teaching.
teaching about
Right.
body. It's teaching emotional intelligence and
Right.
physical
Right.
intelligence. Yeah.
And the key being like if you're noticing like, oof, we're not there yet, I'm still like, okay, put your pajamas on, get into bed. Like if it's still kind of um
Right.
it's just you're feeling like it's stressful or frustrating, maybe for both you and your child. That could be a different way to try deep pressure strategies, deep pressure play, and then with a solid now it's time to wind.
Okay.
Okay. And then you're guiding that kind of wind down, maybe with slower deep pressure, maybe with a slower song, maybe you're using maybe they really like the pushing game where they're pushing your hands away.
Yeah.
I mentioned that earlier for like when you
Yeah.
to get out some of that energy.
Yep.
But we're trying it a little slower. And we're going to use our voices differently to co-regulate. Like, okay, push me as hard as you can. And but we're using ourselves
Got
to
you.
model what does that coming down kind of look like, sound like, feel like.
And I'm assuming the same can apply for older kids, but they might be able
Yeah.
to lead it more.
Yes, right. Same could apply. And then of course, like I'm noticing already kids who are like 8, 9, 10, they want to be spoken to like they're teenagers, right? They want to be
Yeah. Yes.
okay. So you're almost going to talk like, I wouldn't put on like, how does that feel now? And be like, okay, tell me what's going on. How are you
Yeah.
feeling? Like really kind of matter of fact.
Yep.
Because they're also going to be at that age where emotionally, some of them might not want to be coddled or language that makes it sound like you're babying them.
Sure.
Like that could feel embarrassing or just like
Sure.
if you're noticing a wall's kind of being put up and they're getting kind of one wordy with it, like, I'm fine, I don't know, kind of back off and just be like, sometimes this is what helps me. You want to try it? You don't have to tell me if it helps or not, but let's just try this and see if that helps your body.
And are you instructing them on how to do it to themselves at that point?
Yeah,
Like older
you can. I mean, if it's your own child, you can say like, would you like me to do it to you? And then if
Right.
they say like, I can do it myself, I would model, I would demonstrate and show on my own body in front of them as I'm sitting with them, kind of what to do and how to give themselves deep pressure input. The other thing that if it's an older child, those little handheld massagers that they sell at like
Yeah.
the drugstore, those can be really nice for deep pressure as well. And then, that can be a tool. That's a tool that I use with kiddos or someone who's older could just try to themselves. And that might
Okay.
be really nice to just sit and work in downward motions on their own arms and legs.
Okay. So that's something as adults we can do. We can just buy those
Yeah.
things and just,
Yeah.
or our knuckles, whatever. We can do this for
Yeah,
ourselves.
right. Anything. Yeah.
Okay.
So that deep pressure, that proprioceptive input can be used for calming. It's very calming to the nervous system. I would say that's its we would most often use it for calming input or to receive regulation. But depending on the type of activity, you can also see it being something that can get a child who's sleepy or kind of sluggish into gear.
Okay. Is there anything else? So you have your constantly moving kids.
Mm-hmm.
You have your sluggish kids or adults, both. Is there any other, is this good for any other types of things that you might see?
So this might be helpful for kids who they just don't seem to have success with friendships. They're kind, they're sweet, they're interested in having friends, but something always seems to go wrong where they're not sure about the force that they're giving. So different a little bit than excitatory, like,
Yeah.
active versus tired. But if there's just a piece that seems to be like, what's happening? Kate loves people. She loves having friends, but it always seems to end in a push or a shove, or something seems to be happening. Like if they're just having
Okay.
kind of difficulty making and keeping friendships or having a successful play date, or they don't seem to be aware of the force they're using with another person. That could be a flag for like, I know that my child's
Okay.
personality is kind. Something's happening here that like I just don't know what this is. It could
So
be
you mean children that don't understand, help me understand more, that don't understand like their physical space in relationship to others, that might not realize they're bigger or stronger or smaller or whatever it might be.
Sure. So if you need help processing how your muscles and joints are receiving input, that sensory experience of actually processing what does that force feel like, then your output might be unexpected, if so that they might just not be perceiving input that they're getting in an efficient way.
Like
And then
social cues.
it could be, or like the distance between someone's body and their own body. If they're standing in line, they might
Okay.
just want to like give their friend a little nudge, like, hey, I'm behind you in line. But what accidentally happens is like a
Oh,
big, right? So they're
I
not
see.
able to gauge the force of their movement or understand the force of what's the movement that's towards them. Like if their friend passes them a ball playfully, they might feel that gently when it was really rough. So they'll return the ball pass way too rough, but think that it's
I
just kind of
see.
a gentle. It's just interpreting, efficiently organizing and processing that experience of the force of an
I
object
see.
or a person is not happening within their
I
social.
see. So what you and I might interpret as like I'm over explaining this. I'm just trying to make sure I understand. But
Yeah.
like, I
Well, let's
might
go back
think
to the
I'm
patty
nudging
whack game.
you.
Like if you and I are
Yeah.
playing the patty whack game and all of a sudden, and like, hey, Dr. Nicole, and give your hand a
You
shove.
go,
And I have a smile on my face and I think we're playing and I'm laughing and having fun, but you get knocked over. You're all
you're
of a
like, what
sudden
happened?
like, hey, now
Right.
all of a sudden I'm really angry. Now your emotions have been triggered and you're going to come back at me. And now we're just kind of going back and forth.
Right. Did you realize in that scenario, did you realize you were hitting me hard,
No,
or did you
no, I
not
thought we were having
sense that?
fun. I thought we were having fun, but now you're pushing me and I don't like that. So now we're having a back and forth
I
fighting
see.
moment, which
I see.
which now me as the child in that scenario, I'm very confused. And if later, you're saying like, well, Emily hit me. And I said, no, we were playing. You hit me. Because
I
then
see.
when you came back angry. So there can be some misinterpretations of social cues or confusion around social emotional kind of reactions, but it stems from an inefficient processing of how we're receiving input through our brains and bodies.
Okay, I have to ask one more clarifying question. I'm being really
Sure.
annoying here, but I want
No,
to
not
make
at
sure I
all.
fully understand this. So I want to go back to our patty whack situation.
Okay.
We're playing patty whack. What is it called, by the way? Patty cake.
It's called
Patty
a patty
cake.
cake. It's forever patty whack now, but patty cake.
It is like, what is a real word? That sounds so right to me. Okay, patty cake, aka patty whack. Oh man, that was really wrong. It's like all coming back to me. So we're playing patty whack.
Yes.
Are you, when you hit me harder and it ends
Mhm.
up pushing me back, you think we're playing,
Mhm.
but did you know, like, did you process that you were hitting
No,
me harder? You
no,
didn't know that it was harder
no. I
than
didn't
just a
have an
regular
awareness of
hit.
how hard that was.
That's it. Okay. So it's like because I'm not processing the pressure
Mhm.
correctly in some way.
Mhm.
That's okay. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that.
Right. So
So
if
what
things
are
like
the,
that are
yeah.
happening, that might signal a sensory processing disorder where you
Hmm.
might want to seek an occupational therapy evaluation for how to support your child in those kinds of scenarios. So that's not just like my child has a little trouble winding down. I'm going to try this strategy. If you're noticing that we can barely make it through a play date or a school day without getting a call about something that was too rough, too hard, there was an incident, that's a time where like, oh, maybe occupational therapy could be helpful.
Okay. With that, are
Mhm.
there things that I could do at home to support that, or would I find out from occupational therapists what to do?
Yeah, of course. So any of the strategies that we had been talking about, movement, lots of pushing and pulling, back to pushing the laundry basket, back to giving deep squeezes at a few times throughout the day, giving that kind of sensory diet. Those are all things that an occupational therapist would work on with your child and would also recommend as part of your home exercises that you could do to support regulation throughout the day,
Okay.
not having appointments.
Okay. And so doing this for all of the things that we discussed,
Mhm.
for a song in the morning,
Mhm.
a song at night, this lasts for a couple of hours. This gives that diet, it gives that
this
nutrition.
this gives your yeah this gives your sensory system that kind of regulation that we can hold for a few hours until we can kind of get the next input, right? And also if
Okay.
you're noticing that it's not holding, that can also be an indicator of like, I'm trying some of these strategies and still I feel like there's been no change, there's nothing different. I think I need the help of an OT to help make
Okay.
more consistent, find out what else might be happening where we're missing a mark here with just this proprioceptive input.
Okay. So I have one last question around this.
Sure.
So let's say our parents are listening to this and learning and recognizing that their kid is like the wrestler, the constant mover, whatever it might be. And they're getting calls from school all the time.
Mhm.
But they're doing the work at home. How can
Mhm.
you advocate for how can you advocate for your child in school if the educators don't look at it through this lens? You're
Sure.
special, you look at it through this lens.
Yeah. Well, a question that I'm having right now that I'm going to wonder aloud to you is that I wonder there's if there would be a time that we could meet with the school and talk about like what kind of language is being used during those incidents, what kind of repair is happening, because if if it's always brought up in negative terms of like, you cannot hit so and so, come sit in timeout, well, a child who has proprioceptive challenges processing proprioceptive input, they don't know how they can do something differently because
Mm,
that's not something that their brain and body are efficiently working together to do, right? So if there is coaching that can be done, and maybe being transparent with school about like, hey, we've noticed that, John has some challenges with processing input to his muscles and joints that we're working on at home, but what's something that can be done at school for coaching of what went wrong in the play and how it could be done
mm,
differently in a way that's supportive and not shameful, not punishing,
right.
but reminding maybe of the rules of like, oh, of course we can't hit. Can you show me what happened with the ball pass? Now kind of practice a ball pass with that child to show them what force looks like, what you mean when you say it's too hard, what you mean like by a gentle, that language, that understanding of experiencing
Right.
is going to be what helps give their brain and body that information.
Okay, so you could also do an exercise, just an educational exercise where you throw a ball really hard at a wall and throw a ball gently at a wall. Like the
Yes, that would
difference.
be
Okay.
great. That would be helping to support that firm versus gentle. So
Okay. What do you say if a kid, if a kid, the hitting, if they're not understanding their force, what could be the thing that you say as a parent or help coach a teacher on?
right. So, and something that I feel fortunate about is I do get to be in a school where I can point these things
Mhm.
out to an educational faculty and let them know like, oh, this person might need some more support to know what gentle hands means. So
Mhm.
I can show like, let's get your body ready. We do something called joint compressions. So we're kind of like keeping a hand on either side of the joint and kind of pushing our hands together
Mm.
to really squeeze the joint, and giving them that type of body awareness is helpful to regulate. And then I might also do like the put your hands on my hands and move my hands gentle. Now move my hands hard. Kind of like the same way that you had brought up the example of throwing a ball hard or firm,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So if your school has an OT on staff, I might ask whoever you're speaking to if and when you're having a conversation with school about your child, and if there's some incidents or behavior or that kind of thing, like what availability does the OT have to help educators understand more about these challenges and ways that we can coach the child for success, so it's
Mhm.
not something that the child starts to have a negative impact on their self-esteem, right? Or feel like there's
Got
something
you.
or they're bad
Right.
or but right. So we can help to support their emotional health and well-being as,
Okay.
as much as we can.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. I know we didn't get to vestibular, and I'm about
Yeah.
to ask you a question live.
Okay.
Would it be, because I didn't realize how broad this was, and how much it impacted. And I am assuming the vestibular system is just as broad.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It comes with its own whole conversation, I guess. Yeah.
Right. Can we have a whole conversation about that at a
Let's have a
different
whole
time?
conversation,
Let's
right?
have a whole conversation.
It's so helpful too, because and preparation, I've got my little notes and like, oh, I don't know what else we're going to talk about for the rest of the 45 minutes, but it's so helpful to hear because I am so used to talking about it. What
Right.
questions exist in the mind of a parent who might not know about the sensory system? It's really helpful to have that awareness.
Well,
I'm
that's awesome. I'm glad I
I'm
can
new
give
in
to
it.
you.
Yes, truly, it is helpful.
I'm glad because I have so many questions. So I am glad. Emily, it doesn't have to be five, but just are there any takeaways from with this system, with this
Mhm.
sensory system that you would want parents to keep, parenting adults to keep in their
I
mind?
think that they're similar to the takeaways from before, but they're so important. I want to say them again. So using yourself as a tool for co-regulation. So almost like I think this is something we do in more scenarios than just with our children. I noticed when we were having a conversation, you and I, and there were times when it was silly, it was fast paced, both of our brains were really going. And then you said, okay, now I want to bring it back down. So let's do this. You're even using yourself to co-regulate. We can all do this. We can all use ourselves to model the tone and the energy that we're trying to have someone else match. So use yourself as a tool. Co-regulate your child if with your voice and with your body language, if you want them to, if you're trying to get a calmer effect, use a softer tone. Less language is better, and just kind of keep it simple. Use yourself as a tool. Using rhythm using a song for a solid start and stop, and to provide that rhythm and timing within the activity, that will be helpful for organization, for helping your nervous system process that input. So co-regulation for guidance, use a song, connecting with your child, connecting. If they feel like, if you are sensing that they're just not into it, they're not interested, you can take a beat, take 5 minutes away, and then try to come back. You'll know that you've got them when they're looking at you. You can feel them just kind of melting with the interaction that you're having with them. So have fun with it. Enjoy your child.
One other I'm going to add that really was impactful is I've never thought, as adults, we have our own sensory needs. And I never put that together, that like how we calm ourselves down or how we pump ourselves up.
Maybe there's our fifth, is like the whole airplane mask scenario. Help yourself out before you try to help somebody else. If you are on your last nerve and you can't handle it, go do some deep breathing in the corner. Like, stick your face in the freezer to get some cold temperature shock to bring yourself down. Give yourself some squeezes. Get yourself in a better spot before you try to go back in and guide someone else. Yeah,
absolutely. Love it.
Thanks.
I love it. Yes. Emily, this was wonderful. And I'm really, it was just so informative. And I just, learning it through this perspective, as a psychologist, I'm seeing it through, I try to be more holistic, but I'm seeing it through one perspective, but learning it through this perspective is so fascinating because there's so many tools and so many ways we can engage.
So glad we barely scratched the surface with I'm so glad. It's always strange to me that I'm like, why do I have this knowledge that seems so specialized? Everyone, it's always like kind of a joke of like when someone has a baby, they're like, there's no handbook, good luck. Like, this should be the handbook. Like it
should be the handbook.
This
should be the handbook.
Right.
It should be the handbook.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Emily, thank you so much. And then we'll regroup around vestibular.
That'd be great. Stuff. I look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Hey Kiddo. If you like what you hear, give us a review wherever you get your podcasts. Learn more about Hey Kiddo at our website, hey-kiddo.com. Have a question for our experts? Email us at hello@hey-kiddo.com.